Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Riz.
Greetings.
Gendered language.
Onomatopoeias.
The ick.
What makes some words sound funny?
Why just listen to music when you can overanalyze the words in the songs?
Music, language, and Eurovision all crammed into one podcast.
Getting down and wordy with Russell and Hannah. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Find us anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the ODDentity Podcast on the Podmoth Media Network, your foray into the weird, wonky, and sometimes downright spooky. This week, I sat down with Gail de Vos. Gail is an associate professor at Alberta University and an author of several books on folklore and storytelling. She's won the Storytelling World Award, and she's a regular speaker at international folklore and storytelling conferences around the world. If you'd like to pick up a copy of Gail's recent offering, the Watkins Book of Urban Legends, I will drop a link into the show notes so that you can go and snag a copy for yourself. With that said, the podcast will now go dark for a few months as we progress through Christmas and New Year's and everything beyond. So stay tuned, and stay spooky, and stay safe. And now, on with the show. I guess let's start with where your interest in urban legends and contemporary legends originated.
Well, there's a couple different origins for it. I think mostly it's because my mother used to tell them to me as a Gail, don't do this kind of story. So one of the first things, and here I go with my book, one of the first things I talk about in the book is a chapter on how these early legends, or my hearing these early legends that don't circulate much anymore, sort of kept my interests going and kept me searching new ones all the time. But what really happened after all that is that when I started doing my research for my master's degree, I've got a master's in library science, I decided that I wanted to tell stories to teens. And because I wanted to tell stories to teens, and at that time there was nothing out there about telling stories to teens, I wanted to look at the stories that would attract them. And what attracted me as a teen was urban legends. And so I started looking at the urban legends. And in my first book, which is Storytelling for Young Adults, which is a result of my research, it was the one chapter that everybody wanted. That's what they wanted to talk about. Come and talk about urban legends. And so I just said, yeah, that's me. That's what I'll do. And ever since then, I just keep collecting and collecting and collecting. Yeah. So it's in many cases with you, it's the oddity, the bizarre, the sense of surprise, the sense of familiarity. There's all sorts of reasons why those stories call me.
Yeah, there's kind of a comfort that I find that comes with hearing these stories over and over. I have anxiety.
Okay.
And, anybody who suffers from anxiety knows that things that are different or things that change are difficult for people with anxiety or anxious disorders to tolerate
Right.
on certain days. So for me, I can be caught watching the same TV show 18 times because I find it calming. But I can also be found, just poring over, urban legends or, I don't know how many times I've read The Hook Man from beginning to end or The Choking Doberman or The Mexican Pet. And all of these things are just kind of ingrained in me, like it's almost like, as a writer myself, it's almost like you carry all of these things with you. It's like you have a vest or something and you hang all of these different things, so that you have them later.
Always.
Yeah, like a creepy hope chest or something.
Well, I mean, they come into your life and they become part of you, and there's no reason why you need to get rid of them because they're comforting, even if they're bizarre.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I remember in the 90s, there was this TV show, I don't remember what it was called, but the tagline was, "It happened to a friend of mine."
Mm.
And that was right around the time where I was a teenager. And, like you said, everybody, wants to talk about how teens are, affected by urban legends and how these stories kind of translate to teenagers. But it was almost like my life was super mundane at that point in time.
Right.
So it's like you wake up in the morning, you go to school, you come home, blah, 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 every day is the same. And then the show came on TV and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then I started buying books about it. And then I started talking to people about it. And then myself and my friends would sit down and we would tell these stories to each other. And, but it's true because it happened to somebody, not somebody I know directly, but somebody that I know knows somebody that this happened to.
Oh, a friend of a friend.
A friend of a friend. Exactly. So, I mean, it's, I think it was the Midnight Society. Was around about that time too, the storytelling around the campfire and all of this nostalgia associated with that. And it's interesting because when I was reading your email signature is a Philip Pullman quote.
Right.
That after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing that we need the most in the world. And we really do. I mean, that's where all of the fantastical elements and all of the mundanity can kind of drip away, and you're left with something, kind of beautiful.
Well, and not only that, you're left with something that other people share, so you're not alone.
Community.
Yeah, you definitely have a community. They may not be right there at your fingertips, but they're there because you've heard them. You've heard the stories and you know what happened to, and they're telling them in the same way as you are and responding to them in the same way most of the time. And so that community is essential and a large part of what attracted me to the urban legends and why I work with them, telling them to teens and then talking about them and have them writing them. It's that sense of community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
When the fact that I like scaring people.
Right. I mean, that's always fun, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that your mother would tell you these stories, as kind of cautionary tales.
Right.
And, I kind of flashed back to The Hook Man and how it appeared in the Dear Abby column.
Right.
And how it was, well, if you go out on lovers' lanes, like that, if you're a loose girl and you're going to go out on lovers' lanes, this horrible thing could happen to you because it happened to somebody, somebody who knows somebody.
Well, and those are the types of stories that, I mean, I'm a little bit older. I'm a lot bit older than you. So I didn't have the TV shows. Those I had just the stories that were told, and I don't mean just. So they were more believable in a sense when my mother told them because I grew up in a small town in the middle of Alberta. I didn't hear a lot of other people having the same stories. So when she told them to me, they could have been true because they happened to the girl in the next town. and the
Oh,
hook
sure.
is definitely one of them, as well as several others. But I think the terror and the um, I don't know, community comes a little later when you start realizing how many other people have heard these stories as well.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
yeah. But yes, those stories work. And yeah, when you read it in Dear Abby, you went, just a minute, my mom told me that.
Right. Yeah. Or I heard it from my grandmother, who's like
Yeah,
super conservative.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's kind of unfortunate because a lot of people see urban legends as chain letters. Like they
Right.
break them down to like their very basic form. And there's so much more than that.
No, no kidding.
They inform each other and they grow and they change. And it's kind of like a telephone game, you know? Every time you hear it, it changes just slightly. It's basically the same, but there are smaller elements that kind of trick you into believing it a little bit more every single time that you hear it.
Well, not only that, if it's told in a different culture, it has a different resonance as well.
Mm,
So you start realizing that people are the same but not.
mm.
So that you have to adjust your appreciation of the world, and it makes your world larger, not smaller.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually. When I was growing up, I grew up in Newfoundland, um, which, as I'm sure you know, is an island.
Right.
For the people who are listening, they might not know that, or they might, but whatever. Um, but it was, in a small town called Paradise.
Oh, I know that. Okay.
It was not paradise at that time. There was absolutely nothing to do. There was nothing there. But yeah, so I moved from, Paradise to Mount Pearl and lived in St. John's briefly. And every time that I would move around, it was like, okay, now I have to go to a different school, or now I have to experience this new place that I've never been before. And kind of the cool thing about these stories is, you could go and you could sit down with a group of kids at lunch and you could be like, hey, have you heard this one? Have you heard that one? So when you talk about community and how it, brings people together, it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the community and the sense of comfort that people find from these stories. And it's interesting because to find comfort from a story about, like somebody going to Mexico and picking up what they think is a dog, and it turns out to be a giant rat, spoiler, disclaimer.
I know. Um, but the comfort is that you're sharing something that everybody else knows, and the other part of it is that they're appreciating your storytelling ability. You're communicating in a way um, that they appreciate, and that gives you a sense of purpose. That gives you a sense of achievement. It gives you that satisfaction that you're communicating to others as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about is folk legends. So I know in Newfoundland there are folk legends that have been brought over from other places.
Right.
But what really is the difference between a folk legend and an urban legend, or is there a difference?
Well, the urban legends, and I actually don't like the term urban legends, although it's in the title of the new book. I like to say contemporary legends.
Mm.
So what the basic difference is, and this is not written in stone or wherever, is that the urban legends are shorter. And they reflect what's happening in contemporary life. A lot of them are actually based on or retold from ancient stories. So they've been around for a very long time. One of the stories, for example, the spider and the hairdo, has been told since the 13th century. So it was told as a teaching tool at that time for the church. It morphed into a folktale, and then it became an urban legend when it became part of the more contemporary scene.
That's one that I haven't heard before. The spider and the hairdo.
You haven't heard? Oh, wow. Yeah, well, that was one that my mother definitely told me. So I talk about it a lot. Do you want me to tell it?
I mean, I personally would love that.
Okay, it's very short. They're all very short, which is kind of the fun of
Right.
them. But okay, I'll tell it the way my mother did. So this is a story that she would tell me when I was a teenager, a young teenager. And in those days, like I said, I'm a bit older than you. We used to back comb our hair up into these wonderful beehive hairdos.
Mm.
And then you take a can of hairspray and spray it so it wouldn't move. Hey, it looked fantastic. Trust me. Anyways, she would come to me and go, Gail, you have to wash your hair. And I go, Mom, look at it. It's perfect. I'm not touching it. I go, no, didn't you hear what happened to the girl in the next town? No, what? Well, she didn't wash her hair and she didn't wash her hair. And then one day she was dead. I went, what?
Hmm.
Well, she didn't wash her hair for so long that a spider built a nest in her hair. Eggs hatched. They went through her scalp, ate her brain. Now, I wasn't quite sure that that was true, but you know what I did, right? I went and washed my hair.
Right.
We don't tell it that way anymore because we don't wear our hair that way. But, or unless you're Madge Simpson, but if you may have heard it as somebody who went to sleep, fell asleep on the beach while they were on holidays and they got an insect bite on their cheek. Got home and realized that it was really itchy and it was sort of turning red and it was pulsating. So went to the doctor. Doctor says, I don't know what it is. Don't touch it. We'll keep it under observation. It's so itchy. She couldn't stand it. And so the next morning when she was getting ready for school, she just ripped it open while she was in the shower and out came all the tiny little spiders.
I have
So,
heard that one.
yeah, it's been told, like I said, since the 13th century, but different, it changes, and that's what fascinates me so much. It changes with dress codes. It changes with all sorts of different things that you will find who people who are interested in older people, they may talk about it as somebody who's too infirm to wash their hair and it happened to them, or there's all sorts of different permutations of it, reflecting your own interests or the interests of the people that you're talking to.
Yeah, the really interesting thing about that urban legend, as I said, I heard it as, she has like an infected spot on her face.
Right.
And, as a teenager, you're so concerned about your complexion.
Right.
And you're so concerned about your hair and you're so concerned with like how much you weigh and how you look to other people.
Exactly.
And at the same time, you have no idea who you are, so you have all of these confusing, conflicting things going on inside you. And then to hear that a girl a couple of towns over had spiders in her face. I mean, I don't know.
It's kind of, and I mean, this is sort of funny in the same way, but well, maybe it's not. But I remember being called into by the principal of the school. I had told this to a group of grade sevens, and his one of his pupils' mothers was all upset because her child was terrified of spiders.
Oh,
I just brought all that anxiety to the front, and I'm going. So she wanted me to be canceled or whatever, and you're just going, I mean, I don't tell urban legends and scary stories below grade 6 level. Mainly because I'm a mother, and I remember how scared my children used to get. I've got 2 daughters, and I mean, they're adults now, but I remember how they reacted, and I didn't want to scare all these young kids.
Yeah.
However, by the time they're in grade 3, they're asking for these stories now. That's what they want. Tell us a scary story. No, we won't be scared. Yeah, you will.
I promise.
So, yeah.
I think I started reading scary stories to tell in the dark in maybe grade 3.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, I mean, you smuggled it home in your backpack because the imagery was very visceral. You were worried that your parents wouldn't understand and they would think that you were weird and whatever. But yeah, it's interesting that that spider story. When I originally heard it, I didn't hear it as the infection in the face and the spiders coming out of the face. I heard it as there was a woman that was working at a post office and she licked an envelope and it cut her lip.
Right.
So I don't know if that's the same, like if it's a different incarnation of that story or if it's something that evolved, from that, or
it could have been whichever way. I mean, it's not quite, but it definitely is related.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It is. And one of the things that I did in the first two books I wrote about urban legends, I explore that more than I do in the new one. In the new one, it's written differently. It's more of an exploration of what's happening out there now, how it affected me, what's still being told from way back when in the good old days when I was growing up, what's new now, all the haunted and ghost stories and different things as well as conspiracy theories. I don't go into the nitty gritty of them quite as much. It's got it's more let me say it's more written for somebody who wants to have the stories at their fingertips rather than a lot of background about it. But I also I need to learn to talk. I also give clues of where to find more information because I am a librarian, I am a teacher, I am a storyteller, and all of those things are elements that want people to go out and do critical thinking.
Sure. Yeah. And, I feel like when we talk about, chain letters and, in relation to conspiracy theories, I mean, it really, it evolves, it breathes, it has a life of its own, and it's translated, from person to person in a way that other person can understand.
Right.
I'm curious though, like what role do you think culture plays in the creation and sustainability of urban legends?
Oh, I think it has a large role because we all have different cultures. Like our communities are all different cultures. There's a different culture that teens have in one town than they even have in another town. So that culture helps color the stories that they collect and tell. I mean, we have commonalities. We all have haunted houses in our communities, all of us, wherever we live. They may not actually be haunted, but we think they might be haunted. They all exist, but who it is that's haunting them depends on what culture you're in. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
Culture to me, I mean, that's one of the things I love about folklore. And whether it's the contemporary folklore or the older tales, is that, we're all different cultures and we're all different people, but the commonalities are in there, flavored and dressed to reflect our culture, but not so much that it blinds us to those commonalities.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember growing up, my grandfather, he used to tell me stories all the time of, fairies, if you went through the woods at this particular time of day or, what have you, you might be subject to fairy attacks.
Right.
So, I was told that I should always put something in my pocket to give to the fairies, like a piece of candy or, in Newfoundland, they have something called hardtack.
Right.
So, you would break off a piece of hardtack and put it in your pocket. And then if you were worried about the fairies, doing something, you would drop the hardtack and that would supposedly appease them. I had a friend whose mother was more conservative and was Irish, came over from Dublin, and she would actually sew Bible verses into the insides of her jackets.
Right.
Because that's supposed to be like a ward, the word of God against the Fae, and to keep them at bay, you'd sew the Bible verses. And she used to take them to church on Sunday, and she would have them blessed. She would painstakingly, they were handwritten. She would painstakingly write out all of these little notes, and then she would go into the lining of her jacket, and it was like every week there was a new one. But just the cross-culturalism was just kind of interesting, because I'm Canadian, and I consider myself to be Canadian. I don't really consider, even though my family is French, they have French ancestry.
Right.
I don't really ascribe to that. I ascribe to the fact that I'm Canadian, and that's, kind of where it stops. But she had this whole other culture informing her life. And when she used to tell me stories about the Fae from Ireland, and I compared them to the stories that my grandfather would tell, which were generally about, tricksters,
Right.
like they wouldn't really hurt you. They were just tricksters. Like, you should wear your clothes, inside out if you're worried about fairies, because they
Right.
might attack you, and they'll find that funny and they'll laugh it off. But yeah, the stories that my grandfather used to tell and the stories that my friend would hear, were very different. So I always find that interesting, the way that, culture kind of comes in and says, okay, so you're from this place, and this is what we believe this is in this place.
Right.
And you might never encounter somebody who's ever heard that side of the story, until you're sitting next to them in a math class, and you're like, hey, why do you have Bible verses sewn into your jacket? That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm listening to that as well, thinking of a lot of the urban legends that we sort of tell or watch or respond to are from Japan, because they have more ghosts and urban legends than any other culture, really. And they're all bizarre, almost all bizarre. And there is one that, if you want to be safe, you make sure that you have that special candy, because that's what will save you. And that's what made me think about it.
Yep.
But yeah, so that culture comes with stories that, because of manga and because of anime, those stories are now coming to North America and to Europe, in droves. We're now, that culture is leaving behind the Japanese-ness of it,
Sure.
mostly, and it's becoming reinterpreted in many cases, to become something else. And
Yeah, I think I heard something recently about the ghost of a woman in a bathroom stall. And I was like, I feel like I've heard that. Like, that's a Japanese legend, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's an urban legend. It's actually, there's a couple manga. There's a anime. It's Hanako and San, and she's a ghost in the third floor of the girls' washroom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of different permutations of it, but it's always that third floor.
Well, the number 3 is significant, right?
Well, in many cases, yeah, depending on what culture you're in again.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those stories, like I said, are becoming more aware of them because of our fascination with anime and the manga. The stories are coming from elsewhere that we may not have heard before, because unlike your friend who speaks the same language, unless you can speak Japanese and read Japanese, you wouldn't be introduced to these stories until just recently. Now.
Yeah, there's so much stuff. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so much stuff that's come over from Japan.
Yeah.
And it
and elsewhere too, but
Yeah, but I mean, specifically Japan, like I remember when I was in junior high school, I think it was Sailor Moon was really popular.
Right. Right.
And a lot of the characters, like the evil characters, and I kind of hesitate to say the word evil, just because I'm not entirely sure that they are,
Right.
because it's very complex. But a lot of those other characters that were kind of on the darker side were influenced by that kind of folklore that came over from Japan.
Right.
And, I had friends that were super into that show, and they would talk about, all these characters and stuff. And I was, still consuming all of this stuff about urban legends and haunted places and, folklore and all this, kind of stuff. And I'd say to them, that sounds really familiar. Like that sounds a lot like this. And I'd show them and they'd be all fascinated, to find that out. But yeah, it's really interesting how culture influences different people.
Exactly. And not only culture, but the age that many people, like when you're growing up, the age that you were, what the environment was like at that time, what was important to the adults around you if you were a child, or you as an adult if you're a parent or whatever. So it's not just culture, but it's also time. So your environment, your time. And that's why these fascinate me, because when you look at a story, you look at an urban legend, you're not just, and we talked about this briefly earlier, we're not just looking at that story. You're looking at layers and layers and layers and layers of meaning. Yeah. And you may not even recognize it as you tell it or read it or watch it until later, when you just go, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that's what that means to me now. That didn't mean that to me before, but it does now. And so the same stories that you grew up with, and the same stories that you were telling, and the same stories that you saw on the screen change because you've now changed. You're an older person. You've got different experiences. The stories mean something different. And that's, again, the power of story.
Yeah, that's very true. I watched a documentary a little while ago. Joshua Zeman. He did Cropsey. Right. And he talks about, how, like, don't go down here, down by the river, because Cropsey's down there.
Right.
Or don't go to, Willowbrook Park, which, the old tuberculosis hospital, and, Willowbrook, the asylum that, housed and was basically, a place of just, I don't even know how to describe it. It was horrible.
Right.
And, you combine people's individual experiences, and then you pile it onto a place that has all of these kind of, this dark past. And, it's very true that, like, what you experience translates, to, your children and your children's children.
Right.
I didn't hear about Cropsey, but I heard about, like dangerous, for lack of a better, explanation, but like dangerous people.
Right.
Don't go to the mall by yourself because there's dangerous people and you'll be kidnapped. The van with free candy written on the side.
Right.
Because we were all morons. And of course we would go and jump into a van with free candy in it.
Well, just in case.
Well, right. But I mean, then, you think about it and it's like, well, my father and my mother experienced seeing people's faces on milk cartons. I was born during the tail end of that.
Right.
So I remember eating my Cocoa Puffs and looking at somebody's face on the milk carton. And, all of the fear and all of the warnings that came with that. And then come to find out, years and years later, that this whole, like, McGruff the crime dog stuff, like, things were not even close to as bad as they were saying it was.
Right.
But this sensationalism, this fear that kind of built up, and, everybody's parents were just freaking out about it. And the police just kind of it seemed like they just went along with it. And they were like, yeah, well, people are freaked out about this. So let's just let it go and see what happens.
Well, I mean, we just think about, poison candy, Halloween candy, and how the police actually, for many years, they were not stopping anybody. Now they are.
Yeah.
But at that time, that edge of being careful and stranger danger and all of those things, they were good for you, because at that time, when you were growing up and when I was growing up, we wandered as children. We did. We didn't have helicopter parents. So we needed to have the boogeyman or those stories to sort of help us, or help our parents keep us not in line, but safe, to give us a sense of, think about this first, you know, type of thing. We don't have to worry quite so much about that now. Those stories are still there and they're still being told.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different when you think about, how's this child ever going to meet a stranger when it never goes out by itself? But, it goes to school in a car and comes back picked up in a car. But when we were growing up, that's not how it happened.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I used to walk home from school all the time.
Exactly.
All kinds of weather. You just,
yeah.
And you just carried those stories with you.
Yep.
And if you saw a creepy guy in a van, you knew to, run the other way or yell or.
And that's why, the administration, police, whatever, they felt that the stories were doing their, they were helping out in that sense. They didn't want people terrified to death.
Right.
But they wanted them to be careful.
Right.
And so that's one way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, that's something that you can easily translate to children.
Oh, yeah.
You can easily take those stories and say, hey, kids, listen, if you do this, that's dangerous. This could happen.
Yeah.
The really interesting thing about the whole Halloween candy scare, I remember that when I was in grade school, your parents used to have to check all of your candy, for tampering.
Right.
And that was just a huge deal. Every Halloween, there were urgent cares, there were hospitals that were x-raying Snickers bars to make sure that there weren't any pins in them,
It still happens.
Right. And, and then you consider where the threat actually is. And, one of my bags is crime fiction.
Right.
I love to read it and I love to write it. And, in crime, in modern day crime and in crimes of the past as well, the common denominator when somebody is hurt or when somebody's killed or whatever, it's a family member. So you look at the family first.
Right.
And then you think about, the Candyman case, and how, Ronald Clark O'Brien took this poison pixie stick with cyanide powder in it and gave it to his kid.
Right.
He blamed it on some random weird guy down the street, but that random weird guy was actually at work.
He used the story to be able to use that as reflection or deflection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just use the story of the random Halloween, murderer, who, just wants to punish children or, for whatever reason, and kind of, take the spotlight off him, of course, in his case, It didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, every time that we heard about, a case of poison candy or, somebody found a pin in an apple and now all of a sudden, we can't give out apples anymore because people might put pins in them. But all of that sensationalism that now surrounds Halloween, and every Halloween is the same thing. And actually, here in Wisconsin, Halloween is generally not held on the 31st of October.
Oh.
It is also generally not held at night. And if it is held at night, it happens between maybe 6:30 and 8.
Okay.
And then that's it. And then you run into the problem of, Saturday is Halloween in this community and Sunday is Halloween in that community. And then if you cross over, there are kids coming from both communities to your house both days. So you essentially have two groups of trick-or-treaters coming through.
Interesting.
And I'm a Halloweenie, that's fine. I don't I don't have any problems with extra trick-or-treaters. That's cool. But the fact that the whole holiday has been ruined just because, some people, decided to ruin it for other people.
Yeah, well, the fear is there. And one of the biggest reasons for the urban legends is fear.
Mm.
We're afraid of so many things.
Yeah.
That's not getting any better. I mean, that's why we have the conspiracy theories. That's why we have the ghost stories. That's why we have the urban legends. The fear of strangers, the fear of food that we don't know, the fear of animals we don't know, the fear of spiders, the fear of so many things.
Yeah.
We're fearful people, and not just North America. It's seems to be all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like a large majority of it is like a small majority of it is like self-preservation. Like we're all keyed in as to, you see this bright, colorful spider, maybe you shouldn't touch it because it might be poisonous. And there's something in your brain, even if you've never seen that spider before, there's something in your brain that clicks and says, hey, that might be dangerous because look at those colors.
Right.
But then in the other case, you have people who are just sensationalizing everything. And it doesn't matter what color the spider is or how big it is or how small it is or what it's dangerous and avoided at all costs. And it comes down to literally everything now.
Yep.
Which is, it's unfortunate that we seem to live in a constant state of, I don't want to say fear, because it's not really fear.
No, it is. It is fear.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm unsure as to how to classify it, because fear to me, like if you're afraid, that holds some sort of rationale to me. Like there's a level of rationalization that you can be like, I am afraid. But a lot of fear is irrational. I'm afraid, but I don't know why. True.
You just sort of, and part of that is self-preservation, and some of that is being unsure of yourself, or unsure of the situation you're in, or because you've been raised in a certain way and you've never experienced this, and so it's not uncanny, but it is uncanny.
Sure.
So to me, it's fear. It's that and we react to it in different ways. People react to fear. Some become belligerent. Some of them become they fold within themselves. Others go out to explain what's going on, trying to educate themselves. All sorts of different ways of handling fear. But we work with fear all the time. And that's, again, goes back to why it's so important for me with the urban legends, particularly to work with critical thinking, so that we look at why and what we fear. And when we open our eyes and see what it is, maybe we can just accept it or understand it and move on.
Sure. Or, take something of that.
Yeah.
And carry it with us.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being nervous about walking down a dark road in the middle of nowhere. Anything could happen.
Sure.
May not be a vampire coming out, but it could be something else. It could be the fact that you fall because you can't see properly, and there's nobody around there and your phone doesn't work. There's all sorts of things that can be translated into your fear of vampires.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know who actually said it, but I always say that just because you're paranoid doesn't mean everybody's not out to get you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So kind of live with a healthy level of skepticism, but also just kind of carry that in the back of your mind that, there are people in the world who might want to do you harm or, whatever, and then just kind of live your life as best you can within, your own kind of parameters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't be a Pollyanna all the time, but at the same time, you can't be doom and gloom.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess from here, I really want to know what your favorite urban legend is. Or I'm sorry, your favorite contemporary legend is.
I have, and that's a hard question to answer because it depends on how I'm feeling and what day
Mhm.
it is.
Well, I
Um,
mean, even if you have two, I would be okay with two.
Okay, so one of my absolute favorites, which is an old one, but it's one that I tell all the time, and it always gives me great pleasure, is a very old one, as I said, is The Vanishing Hitchhiker.
That is one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's just always, it's one I tell, it's one that I talk about, it's one that I've rewritten. I love it because it's very old. It's
Mhm.
been told for 400 years in various different ways. It's told in so many different countries. So it's one that resonates with me, that fascinates me. I never get tired of it, whether I'm seeing it, reading it, hearing it. It's one. So that's probably one of the ones. Um, a second one, I have a thing about, and it's not an urban legend. I have to admit, this is folklore. Um, because there is a folklore figure that absolutely fascinates me, and that's Baba Yaga, the witch.
Mm,
Um, and her story, to me, her stories, her history, um, can be very contemporary as well, because now you see, um, Baba Yaga being the name of, drones and things like that that are fighting wars. They've named Baba Yaga as a weapon.
mm,
Um, so her image has shown up and changed in modern times. But I don't know if you're a Hellboy fan, but Hellboy, in particular in the comic books, has Baba Yaga, and she plays a very, very important role in that whole story arc.
oh,
And
sure.
I just love it because it's been retold and reimagined and regurgitated, if you like. And the stories always fascinate because she can be very, very good or she can be very, very bad, and you don't know. You
Mm,
never know whether she's going to be one or the other.
hmm.
She's rarely anything in between. I love her.
Yeah, the duality of woman.
Yep. Yeah. Well, she was I think originally a goddess of the forest
Sure.
that far back. Yeah. So,
Huh.
yeah. So that's not exactly a contemporary legend, but she certainly shows up in contemporary folklore.
Sure. And what do you think about the whole I believe the gentleman's name was and I'm gonna catch flack for it if it's not right. Um I think that his name was Ray Robinson. Um and they called him the Green Man,
Right.
and that was somehow connected to the vanishing hitchhiker urban
Um,
legend.
I'm not sure the connection,
Mm,
and to tell you the truth, I'd have to look at that a little bit more closely.
sure.
Um, yeah. The Green Man, of course, has so much rich background as a
Mm,
folklore character that anybody who takes that, well, I don't know if he took it so much as it was given to him, but I don't think he earned it.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel, the only connection that I could really think of between the two stories would be the fact that Ray Robinson was often out walking late at night, and would look kind of ghostly to people in their headlights.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know necessarily that he hitchhiked at all.
No.
But
Or that he vanished in the same way.
right, yeah. I mean, maybe once the headlights were off him, it kind of looked like he vanished. I don't know.
One of the things in the new book, I've got quite a few ghosts that show up with cars, haunted bridges, cars, haunted roads, cars, and I'm sure that they were the same ghosts that were with wagons
Sure.
and back. Those kinds of characters have been around for a very, very long time, and I don't consider them the same as a vanishing hitchhiker.
Sure. Yeah. So in your opinion, are ghosts real?
That's a hard question for me to answer. But I have never been able to prove that they're not.
Yeah, I always like to ask people who are keen on urban legends and folklore, kind of how they feel about the paranormal, because for me, reading a lot of these stories, they're a lot of them are quite ghostly. They seem to have a lot of paranormal elements.
Well, it was funny because I was talking about this with my husband and with some friends. One of the things that I did in the book, I'm talking about a lot of ghost stories in the new book, and many of the legend tripping that I've done along with other folklorists. I'm not a folklorist, but with folklorists. And I have gone to so many haunted places and have never seen a ghost. That doesn't stop me. I still go and I still look.
Yep.
But right now, I can't say that that they exist or they don't exist, because every time I try, I'm so disappointed.
So the ghost of a story, perhaps, but not
Exactly. And I'm not saying they don't exist for other people. It may be that my expectations are too high.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's fair. That's a fair response.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So your new book is coming out this year, the 12th of November.
It is.
The Watkins Book of Urban Legends, a comprehensive and entertainment collection of urban legends from around the world, with a history and analysis of the origin of each tale, compiled by a leading authority in the field. And I would certainly consider you a leading authority.
Well, thank you. I find it kind of funny because I hang around with a lot of leading authorities in the field, and I'm not sure that I never mind. That's probably a whole different story. But I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the marketing of Watkins. I have not ever written for this type of publisher before. All my other books are academic publishers, and they market differently. So I'm having a blast because, they're doing a whole different thing for me, and I'm enjoying it a lot. It was interesting to write it because I don't speak academically, but I write more academically.
Sure.
This one I had to figure out what my voice was going to be for this collection, and I enjoyed it. So I'm hoping that you do when it comes out.
Oh, I pre-ordered it the minute I saw it. The minute I saw that it was available for pre-order, I was clicking that button.
All right. Good enough.
Yeah, super excited. No, I was kind of freaking out a little bit about this interview. Simply because I'm such a huge fan of your work. I'm such a huge fan of Jan Brunvand and everything that he's, brought to the study of contemporary legends. And they say, you should never meet your heroes because you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
And although I only met Jan over email, I definitely was not disappointed.
No, he's a sweetie.
And speaking to you has been such an amazing privilege and a pleasure. I am just so stoked about this interview.
Oh, well, I'm glad.
It's really been fantastic. So thank you so very much.
I really enjoyed this, and take care.
The Identity Podcast is brought to you by host Janine Mercer. It's written and edited by Janine Mercer unless otherwise stated, and the music is created using GarageBand. Find the Odd Pod on Insta at Identity Pod or on Facebook as the Identity Podcast. Please remember to share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review on the podcatcher of your choice, and mash that subscribe button so that you're in the know when a new episode drops.